readers. Welcome back to The Adulterous Whore. I'm your host, Stacey. I have the absolute privilege today to introduce you to one incredible author, Elena Taylor. How are you? How's your morning?
Oh, yay. My morning is good. I have my cup of coffee going. I get to chat with you. It's a beautiful, wonderful morning.
Excellent, excellent. Now, I thought we'd start off by telling my listeners exactly what your book is about. It's called The Haunting of Emily Grace. I literally banged it out in one evening. I was absolutely riveted. So tell them all about your book.
I love that. That's like the best compliment I can get, that you're hooked in enough to want to read it like that. So thank
It
you
was
for
brilliant.
that.
Brilliant.
Oh, thank you. It's man, what can I say about this book? So it's about a woman who's overcoming sort of the worst event of her life, and she really feels like she's at rock bottom. And she's tossed this is all in the first chapter, so I'm not giving anything away. Has been sort of thrown a lifeline by a mentor friend. And she's a carpenter, and she heads out to this isolated island to do all the interior finish carpentry of a giant mansion owned by a multimillionaire. And so she has, sort of shed her life and appears out on this isolated island thinking, this will be great. I can be on my own. I can recover. This is the kind of job that gets into magazines, and it'll get me out of my career, spiral. And then things just start going sideways for her. And yeah, right? They go a little sideways. And, it's interesting about the title, Haunting. For me, haunting means so many things. And she is truly haunted by her past. And that's the single driving haunting aspect to her. And there's some light paranormal and there's some light horror sort of elements. But it really, truly is a book about a woman coming back from the brink.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Thank you.
That is perfect way of describing your book because I completely agree. But I gotta ask, like, I was severely creeped out reading your book. Have you ever
Okay.
had a spooky encounter yourself? And if you did you draw on it when you were writing this novel?
Yes, I have. I would say the spookiest experience I ever had, and I was a teenager and I was in a location and I didn't know much about it. I was in Germany and I was staying the night in a hostel that was in an old building, and I went out to walk around, and I went into this space and I immediately was just overwhelmed with this sort of sense of wrongness. And I left and found out later it was used to hold people on their way to concentration camps. And I had no idea. I had no idea. And what struck me about it, and there's all kinds of reasons why I might have reacted that way, but what really struck me about it was this idea that spaces can hold energy in some way. And I think regardless of sort of your belief system, that can sort of make sense, right? That like a
Yeah.
space can sort of be imbued with the experiences of the people who live there. And so that stayed with me. I was a teenager, and that stayed with me. And so that idea of space, and because I didn't know ahead of time, like I visited a place in Tanzania which had been used during the slave trade, and I had a similar kind of sense, but I expected that because I knew what it had been used for. But the one in Germany, I didn't have a heads up. And so that was a genuine reaction to a location.
Oh,
Yeah. So for me, this house is invested with the energy of the people who live there.
smart. That was really smart. That was really creepy too. Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit
Yeah.
creeped out now.
Yeah. Yeah. A little bit.
Yeah, I can believe that. So you wrote a psychological thriller, a gothic psychological thriller. Do you read psychological thrillers yourself? And if you do, what's your favorite book in the genre, or do you have a favorite author maybe?
I do. I read a lot. I don't know that I have a favorite book, but I have authors that are kind of go to, like Lisa Joel. I love Lisa Joel.
Yeah, she's
Lisa
phenomenal.
Hall, Lisa Unger, hit all the Lisas, right?
Yeah.
Lisa Hall, Lisa Unger, Lisa Joel. I should change my name to Lisa for psychological suspense, but
Oh yeah. We're
I
great.
really, yeah, right. I really liked Carter Wilson's most recent novel. What I like about Carter is he really combines the psychology with the action. like
Right.
his is almost more of a psychological thriller, like he sort of leans that way. But I like that about him. Riley Sager, I hit all the ones we expect.
Yeah.
I was thinking just this morning, I was debating in my head, do I think that the women and men write psychological suspense different? And I don't
Yeah.
my instinct is maybe men do lean more into action and women lean more into psychology, but that's a purely off the top of my head. And so now I've been a little bit like, I should go in and see if that holds true.
Yeah, you know what? I think you might be onto something there. I think women go for more the emotional, like the hit and the emotions, where the men tend to go
Yeah.
for more the fright, like the action. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think you're onto something there. I
I think
really think
so.
you
I think so
are.
too.
Yeah.
Now we gotta dig in and
Yeah. Well,
make
I
notes.
just like I never thought of that before. And now I'm like,
Yeah.
that makes complete sense. I like that. So I really enjoy Gothic literature. What were your inspirations for writing this particular novel?
Rebecca.
Brilliant book. Yep.
Yeah, and it was something I read again, something I read very young. I was, I don't know, 9 probably when I read Rebecca, or 10,
Wow.
something. Yeah, I was a
Yeah.
I was reading really adult stuff as a kid, and I read Jane Eyre in the 6th grade. Like I was, I just
Wow.
sort of I leaned into that stuff. I think there was something about Rebecca, and again, right, this comes back to place, that wonderful opening line, "I jumped last night and went back to," I went to Mandalay, and it's all about that location, and I think um, I think it's that combination of all the, is it real? Is it not? Is it
Yeah.
supernatural? Is it criminal? What, and that was really what I was going after,
Well,
was
you
that sort of
nailed it.
questioning.
Oh, you
Thank
nailed
you.
it because I wasn't sure what was going on. Even at the conclusion at the end, I was like, wow, I did not see that coming. That it was
Yay.
powerfully
Yay.
done. It was powerfully done.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you mentioned the movie Casablanca. Now, is that a favorite movie of yours? And if so, how many times have you seen it?
It's it is a favorite movie of mine. It is one of those movies I can watch more than once. I haven't watched it in a long time, but I actually, back in the VHS days, I owned a copy and I would watch it. But I think, I think the things that I love about it is how human all the characters are in that film. You've got people facing some of the worst experiences that human beings can face, right?
Yeah.
And how people behave in those pressure cookers is part of what makes that film so fascinating.
For
And
sure.
that it ends up being a buddy movie, right? There's
Yeah.
romance and all of that, but let's be honest, it's a buddy film.
It is. It really is. You're completely
Yeah,
correct. Like, I haven't
yeah,
seen Casablanca in years, but it literally made me wanna go watch it, which is why I drew the question out. I'm like, "I kinda wanna
yeah,
watch it again
yeah.
now. It's been a long
I
time
know.
since I
I was like, I gotta watch it again.
kinda need to now." I felt immersed. That was one of the things I really loved about your book. I felt really immersed
Yeah,
into the story, which, I really
wonderful.
need with my thrillers, so kudos on that.
Yeah.
I was enthralled
Hey,
all the way through.
hey.
Now, you wrote the character Cameron, and he was really interesting to me because clearly he's very well off. But you kind of keep him really humble in the beginning, and that was really
Yeah.
intriguing for me. How did you expect the readers to feel about him as the novel was progressing?
You know, that's such a great question. What I hoped for was that the readers came to appreciate him as the book progressed alongside Emily Grace.
Yeah.
Like her ability to see him as a real person, despite his flaws, despite
Yeah.
whatever, but that understanding of, we all face challenging things, even if we're multimillionaires.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we should all have that problem. Like, no,
Nice.
I'm not saying, "Oh, I'd rather be poor and happy," right, than wealthy and miserable. So, I really wanted people to sort of see him revealed as a character.
Yeah. Well, you did for me because I actually had no idea what I thought about him for the longest. And I went, oh, yeah. I was like, oh, no. Oh, yeah. Oh, no. I was really confused. And speaking of which, you had the three main players in the house. You had Emily Grace, Chloe, and Cameron. And they all come across a little bit unreliable in their own way, so you didn't really know who to trust. Like, how easy was it for you to keep us all guessing with that?
That was a little tough, and you think about the reasons why people are unreliable, and Emily Grace is actually unreliable because she's grieving, and we behave
Yeah,
in strange ways, and
exactly.
we can do things that we wouldn't do when that's not true, and Chloe and Cameron have their own reasons for not being upfront or not being honest or not being open, and everybody's hiding stuff, right? They're either hiding something that's too painful to share or, for reasons we won't talk about.
Yes.
So yeah, it was tricky, but also, like I wanted that. I wanted that to be. So I'm happy to hear that that came through.
Oh, it really did. Like, I was really on edge for quite a lot of the book. I'm like, "Oh, I don't know where this is going," and it kinda gave me that uneasy feeling, and I loved that because that's what I need
Good,
from my
good.
thrillers. I don't want things handed to me so easy either, so I was really like, "Wow, this
Yeah,
is
yeah,
deep."
yeah.
Now,
Good.
Emily Grace stays. Even though this really weird stuff is happening to her,
Yeah.
point would you have cried uncle and left? I understand her reasoning for being there, but at what point would you have gone as a person? Because I think I would have
Yeah,
peeked out way
she'd have been
sooner.
out of there. I think I'd have stuck it out. I like to think I would have stuck it
Yeah,
out. I have some characteristics that are in Emily Grace, including I was a carpenter.
really.
And yeah, I was a theatrical carpenter, so I was building stuff that only had to last 6 weeks, but, yeah, I was a theater carpenter for a lot of years.
That's amazing.
I think I would have stuck it out. I think I would have stuck it out. I have been known to do things which are not in my best interest to help other people. And I'm not saying that like as a brag, but as a sometimes I because it's not. I mean, sometimes I've done some stupid things to help other people. And I think that like Emily Grace, I'd have been like, "Mm-mm, I'm digging in. I'm here.
Yeah,
I got a job to do." I like to think I would have stuck it out. Yeah.
yeah, I think I would have left right. Yeah, I don't think I would have stayed long. You know what? If it was on the mainland and I could have just driven away, maybe, but being stuck with like the
Yep.
fair, yeah, I think I
Yep.
would have, yeah, I would
Yeah.
have picked that way,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Now, would you have been friends with Emily Grace if she was a real human being? And what makes her likable and unlikable?
Yeah. 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 I think I know that she and I would be friends. Whether or not I would have stood by her when she was really falling apart, I don't know. Right? Like that's we opened the book with her kind of only one friend left who has said,
Yeah.
I'm gonna stand by you and be the one to throw you this lifeline. And I don't know whether I would be that person. I might now that's where my self-preservation might come in,
Yeah.
where I'd be like, you know what, you're not bringing me down. Like
Yeah.
I'll stick out the danger, but you don't get to bring me down. So that might have been where I would have
That's your
fallen
line
away
there.
from her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes complete sense. Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, I guess you're a better person than me because I would have already probably have set a boundary right there. Like, no, no danger for me. I'm good. Now, Emily Grace, she goes for basically a psychic reading. Have you ever
Mhm.
had your tarot read before?
I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much research went into psychic abilities? Like, what did you have to learn to be able to
Uh,
write?
so I'm gonna drop something for readers where I'm gonna say you will know this when you get to it. There is an event that happens in the book, which is verbatim something that happened to me.
Wow.
I am not a woo-woo person, and
Okay.
I mean that in a loving way. I'm not.
Right.
I'm very practical and very whatever. When you get to the event in the book, and you will know it when you get there, I that happened to me, almost word for word. Now it's different scenario, but almost word for word, the event that happens with the psychic. And so, I as a kid, I had my mom actually owned a tarot card. She never used them, but she had a deck. I don't even know how she got, it was the '70s. She had a deck of tarot cards. And I used to play with them as a kid, and then as I got a little bit older, what I came upon with tarot, and I respect people who whatever you need to do to sort of sort life out. But what I came to with tarot was that you asked the question and the cards provided information and you filled in the blanks what you actually really deep down needed. And so I've always felt that tarot cards are super useful in that way. It helps you sort of clarify because you read what you want to read, right?
Of course.
You translate the way you want to translate. Until I had that experience. Until I had that experience. And I had that event happen to me and I went, there's more to this than I know because
Yeah.
it was, and you know what event I'm talking about.
Yes, I do. I
And
won't say anything. I
yeah,
don't care
yeah,
about
we can talk about it off air. We can talk about it off air. But it was, that happened and I walked away and went, okay, we do have connections to things larger than ourselves. We do have. And as a writer, I'll throw this out as well. As a writer, I've always believed in the collective unconsciousness. And I think that the collective unconscious, and I believe that writers just sort of tap into the larger sort of humanity. It's how we get our stories and why they resonate with people because
Yeah.
we're reading our community. We're reading what's happening to us as people. And that in and of itself is a connection to something larger. So I do believe in that as well. I have sort of different
Yeah.
pots I'm pulling from.
No, that was beautiful. I like the way you put that. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Didn't think about it like that, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
incredible. So I found a quote in your book and I felt it within my whole soul. But I even posted it on my personal Facebook page because it really hit me. And it was pain subsides. It remains a burden to bear for a lifetime, but it doesn't kill us. It doesn't drag us down unless we let it. I got chills just then. Again, I just said it and I got chills again. Now that was really powerful to me. Now, how has loss impacted your life?
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm pleased you pulled that line. You may have noticed that the book is dedicated to Chance, and it says I miss you every day. And Chance was my rescue horse and rescued out of a kill pen. I spent years rehabilitating him. And he was my hard horse, and it was interesting because the one of the vet very early on said this horse may not make it, and he may
Yeah.
psychologically never be okay. And I had a trainer who said, this horse may not ever be okay. And he was. And he came around. Like I said, I worked with him every day for years. I mean, every day I worked with that horse. And I got him where he was safe and he was calm and he trusted me. And and he was killed in a accident. And it was an accident that was, I don't want to say it was preventable, but it was someone else's fault.
Yeah. That's heartbreaking.
And I was devastated. I was devastated. I mean, it was, and so this book is that.
Feel
This
that.
book is about, and I had another horse at the time, and I've had, who I still have, Jasper. He's my older horse, and then I've had other horses since, and I've had other losses, but that one, there's the wonderful Dylan Thomas poem about after the first death. There is no other. And that was the original title of this book was The First Death. Then I found out someone else had a book out with that title. And I like my title better, so it's okay.
Oh, I do. I love your.
But that is, that's what this book is about. This book is about losing Chance.
Oh, that's yeah.
Yeah.
I could feel the loss in the book, so that must have been devastating for you. It really
Yeah.
comes across in the
Yeah.
pages. I'm so sorry for your loss.
I
And it,
miss him every day.
I
Yeah.
bet, I bet that it doesn't. That ache is always going
Yeah.
to kind of be there. But like you said, it doesn't drag us down
It
unless.
doesn't kill you unless you let it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's incredible. So the story spends a lot of time on a boat. Now, are you a sailor? Have you been on boats much? And how much research went into the nautical aspects of your book?
So back in my youth, in my misspent youth, I grew up in Southern California. I
Yep.
grew up in Southern California and I did a fair amount of sailing. I was never a great sailor, but I had a friend who raced sailboats. And a lot of times they would bring me on to the female racing teams because they were all like 5'2" and 100 pounds, right? And I'm 5'9" and I haven't been 100 pounds since I was, middle school, right? And so they would bring me on, and my job was pull out the spinnaker pole, which you're doing this with a rope as
Right.
fast. And I have a lot of upper body strength, and I would just haul that pole out as fast as I could, and that would snap the spinnaker sail up, as you're heading downwind. And then I would jump on the high side, and the high side. So boats are doing this, right? And the flatter a boat, the faster it goes.
Oh,
So my
okay.
job was to pull out the spinnaker pole, have that launch as fast as it can, and then hop on the high side to help My weight would hold the boat down. And so I was
Wow.
basically ballast.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, like I said, I was never a great sailor, but I did a fair amount of it. The Choi Lee that's in the book is one of my favorite. They're all wood, just stunningly beautiful boats. I love a good Choi Lee,
Yeah.
and so I did have to do some research. I could never remember. I'm like, is that a yawl? Is that a catch? Is the mainsail fore, aft? Like I had to sort of research and make sure I got that stuff right. But I know enough to know what I needed to double check.
So
But
you knew
I
check
love
on,
the
yeah.
ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the ocean. I love to be on the ocean. I used to be a scuba diver. I snorkel when I can. I love being in the water, on the water. Did some kayaking and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
I don't know much about boats myself, but it all seemed right to me. Like, it all made complete sense.
Excellent, excellent.
Like, woo, words were there, and I didn't feel overwhelmed. I loved that. Loved it.
Good, good.
Now, the last 20% of your book had me on the habitual heart palpitations. I was literally, because I was laying in bed with my husband and I was sitting up and he was like, "Are you going to lay down?" I'm like, "No." Thing to make me keel over from a heart attack because I was close. Twists. Did you always know how it was going to end, or did you kind of decide the ending as you were going along?
I had a good sense of how it ended, but the details took me multiple drafts to get to.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, so I knew where I was going, but I would have moments of like, "Well, wait a minute, that didn't track from this," or
Yeah,
I'm missing something, or, so, the original draft, the very first draft had how it ended, but, like, it
right.
didn't make sense
Yeah,
necessarily, and I had to go back in and be like, "Okay, if that's true, then this needs to happen in the first chapter.
right.
If that's true, then this needs to happen in this chapter." If and sort of sorting that out, and so the details came through multiple drafts, but I knew really from the origins of it how it was gonna
I
end.
was gonna
Gave me
add,
a
yeah.
direction, gave me a direction to write to, yeah.
It made complete sense to me. It's like the way how it got there, I was like, yeah, yeah. I can
Good,
see
good.
how it ended up there. I just didn't see it until I
Which is always our goal, right?
ride. It was an absolutely wild ride.
Wonderful,
Such a wild ride.
wonderful.
So, how did you develop the characters, and are they based on any people you know in real life?
I'm gonna give you a slightly different answer first, and then I'll answer your question, which is we always we always worry like if I make somebody too similar that somebody's gonna see something and it's gonna be unflattering. And one time I used to be a playwright when I worked in the theater, and I had written this play and I had written something rather negative about somebody who I knew in the real world. And I thought, well, she'll never see this, right? And then we did a reading happened of the play, and she came and saw it, and I was like, "Oh, man." And she comes up to me later, and she goes, "Oh my god, that character, that was so obnoxious. I can't imagine anybody actually acting that way." I kid you not, I kid you not. So, I after that experience, I thought, the reality is people are never gonna see the negative parts of themselves. So, with that as the groundwork, yes, right, there are some very real people that these characters are based on, absolutely, but they're not any one person. So, I'll
Okay,
take, like, this characteristic from this person and this
okay.
characteristic from that person and sort of combine them together. But yeah, readers that know me, feel free to see if you think you're reflected in any of those characters.
God, that's hilarious. That's so funny.
It really was. And when she started to talk about it, I thought, "Oh god,
Here we are.
she's gonna call me out." And she's like, "Oh, that character just couldn't happen in the real world." I'm like, "Okay."
My stomach, that's priceless. That's absolutely priceless.
It really was. It really was.
So, what was the most challenging scene or chapter to write, and why?
Think the honest answer would be chapter one. And the reason for that is, I mean, first off, I rewrote it a million times. And a lot of that came from, so my other series, my first series is this very funny private eye mother daughter crime fighting duo. It's written under Elena Hartwell. Yeah, it's even written under another name. It's very funny. It's very Sue Grafton. And my second series is the Sheriff Bet Rivers series, which is written under Elena Taylor, but it's a police procedural. And so that character is, she's a good cop. She follows procedure, loves her community. It's a small town, so sometimes she has to do things outside the norm, but she's, And so I had never written suspense, which is a very different genre.
Oh, yeah.
And I kept like I would write the opening and the opening started in different places. Like originally it started like the day before she gets on the ferry. And it was she was like in a hotel room and and then like all these other things. And it was like, no, this really launches when she gets on the ferry. And so that's now where I open it.
Yeah.
And so that first chapter was super challenging because I would obviously I would like write further and then go back and look at the first chapter and then change things and then write, and then change the but really was me the very first chapter where I was trying to write suspense. And it is a different animal and it has different rules and it had, and I learned a ton with this book. And so I think that's why chapter 1 was so hard.
Yeah, I bet. Because you also have to set the stage to keep the reader going forward. And I know my mum is a big thriller reader, and if she's not hooked from chapter 1, she'll quite often DNF, and she's
Yeah.
a nightmare. I'm
Yeah.
like, "Sometimes the meat and
Yeah.
potatoes don't get on." She's like, "No, no. If they
Yeah.
haven't hooked me in the
Yeah.
beginning, they
Yeah.
ain't hooking me."
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that's
And
yeah.
that's really hard.
Yeah, yeah, well, you nailed it. You really did nail it.
Thank you.
I was
Thank you.
curious about that because I wondered if it was
Yeah.
the ending, but to know it was the start, that's intriguing. Very
It
intriguing.
is. And I'm going to give a shout out to a friend of mine, Jeff Ayers. He writes under the name AJ Landau. He read he's reading the first chapter and he goes, I think this is your opening line. And that opening line, so it's my line, but he's the one that said, I think this is your first line. And he was right. And I love the
Yeah.
first line of the book.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's
yeah.
it was
Sometimes we
perfect
don't
for everyone.
know.
No, I bet.
Got
It's
to
all
have
a
it pointed out.
process.
Someone else has to point it out. No.
Sometimes that happens to us, sometimes that happens. So, how did you decide where to place the plot twists and the red herrings to keep us as an
Mm.
audience engaged?
That's really hard to answer. I think it's sort of a combination of, and this is something that I'm still learning how to do well, I think, in suspense. Like I really know how to do it in police procedurals and in private eye, but I'm learning in suspense. And I think it's a combination of sort of intuition of like, we've gone in this direction long enough. And that sort of craft idea of, and this is what I'm working to do better in my new book, which is every chapter has to do something more than just forward momentum. There needs to be a reversal or reveal or some sort of surprise. And so that idea of that craft, so you have the intuitive side. It's time to do something slightly different.
Yeah.
And the craft side, which is, you know what, Elena, maybe look at every chapter and what happens in every chapter. And so I'm sort of learning to combine those two.
Oh, I like that. I like that. I like authors that adapt as they go. I love that because sometimes you see a really nice reading journey when you get the backlog of authors and you can see how their writing journey has progressed. I've really enjoyed that myself. That's
Yeah, yeah,
amazing. That's
yeah.
amazing. So, what kind of research do you do to make your thriller world and plots more believable?
I do. I love research. And I'm also one of those writers that's like, I might research at the start and I might research partway through and I might research after the draft. Like I don't do it all at once or, I'm hopping on Google while I'm writing and saying, what kind of tree does grow it, that kind of stuff. And so I neither get lost down the rabbit hole nor do I ignore it. It's very much incorporated. And I always like to think of research as so much the big picture. Like
Yeah.
it is about what time does the sun set in, you know, northern Washington state in
Yeah.
November. Like I want those details accurate because I think the world, when you're writing a police procedural, it's like you're doing what you can to get the police procedural stuff right, right? Like
Yeah. Of
you got to
course.
know how a gun fires. Is it a magazine? Is it a clip? It's a magazine, by the way. It's not a clip. It's a magazine. But like those are the details you want to get right. But you also need to build the world correctly, right?
Yes.
Tides do what tides do, and flowers bloom when flowers bloom. It takes X amount of time to bake a particular kind of recipe. Like those things are real. And if you get those wrong and readers catch it, then they can't trust anything else.
Right. Yeah.
So the
Because
devil really is in those little details.
in those details, yeah, because I am Ever since I started doing deep dives on my podcast, I have been actively searching for plot holes, and I could not
Yeah.
for the life of me find one
Yeah.
in yours. My husband was like, "You look really disappointed." And I'm like, "What?" Because I kind of wanted to go, "Hey, did you mean this?" And I couldn't find anything. And I was like, "Yeah, you closed every single one." And that is a
Love
skill,
that.
right?
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I love, 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 love that. Because honestly, plot is much harder for me than character. Characters come much more naturally. I have to work a lot harder at, the story. And I teach a lot, and I teach a lot about story structure because I think that underpinning that skeleton is so
Yeah,
incredibly important. You can't do all the frosting if your cake collapses, right? I also love the
exactly.
great
That's a great
British cooking
analogy.
Great British booking baking show, and I can get that word out. But, if the structure collapses, it doesn't matter how good it tastes. It does, you gotta have that underneath
Yeah.
it.
I need both in my books. When some people say you character driven or plot driven, well, if you don't have both, you're always going to be like, something just didn't quite work here for
Yeah,
me. But I thought
yeah.
your characters were really authentic. That was one of the things I really
Thank
did
you.
enjoy. They were flawed. They felt like they were real people, like they were tangible, and that was some really clever writing. I really enjoyed.
Yay, yay, yay.
So, what made you choose thriller as a genre?
Well, I would call this psychological suspense. I wouldn't call this a thriller. I mean, it has some thriller elements, especially at the end, right? Like in the
Yeah. Oh
end,
yeah.
it feels much more thriller. So I would call this much more psychological suspense, and it was sort of a combination of things. Here I was writing police procedurals, and things got a little complicated here in the US for how police were viewed, and police procedurals actually dropped off and
Really?
people wanting to read them because, yeah, there was a lot of upheaval for several years about police bad behavior and all that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. And I love my Private Eye series, but I was sort of had been moving on to other things. And I thought, I read a lot of psychological suspense. I've always really loved suspense. I wanna write in that genre. And so that kind of moved me forward. And it's interesting because my second in my police procedural series, people talk about it having thriller elements, even though it's police procedural. And now I have this suspense book that has sort of these other elements. So I seem to, and I think this comes in part from starting off as a playwright where we don't think in genre. Like
No.
you can write a funny play and then you can write a serious play and then you can write a bittersweet play. Like nobody cares. But as
Yeah.
an author, they tend to sort of be like, what's your genre? And I'm like, well, this has elements of that and this has elements of that. And for better or worse, that's the kind of writer that I am. And so it really was about, I knew I wanted to tell a story that was deeply emotional, deeply psychological, but I love when that's told in the background of, wow, there's some really weird stuff going on.
Oh yeah.
What's real here? Yeah,
You
yeah,
nailed
what's real?
lots of authors
Thank
nowadays
you.
are doing more mashups. So I think you're right in the
Yeah,
time frame for
yeah,
not
yeah,
really worrying about where you get placed because as a reader, I really enjoy that too, like having a little piece of
good.
everything and it keeps you guessing and I really
Yeah.
enjoyed your book. So you said that like Rebecca was the inspiration for
Mhm,
this
mhm.
novel. Are you still an avid reader? Do you still read a lot?
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah?
do. I do. I read a lot. And it's a combination of things. I review books on occasion, so I have those. I blurb books on occasion, so I have those. So I have some books that I sort of quote unquote have to read. I mean, I still enjoy it, but it's a different sort of mindset because you're
Yeah.
like, how am I gonna talk about this book? And then I will remind myself, oh, Elena, you also have to read for fun. And so I'll just randomly, maybe it's a friend's book or a book I've been hearing a lot about.
Yeah.
Right now I want to be reading psychological suspense because I'm I'm working on the third of my police procedural, but I feel confident in that genre. And so I'm reading a lot of psychological suspense because I have a new project that I'm working on. And so I want to like invest myself in that. And I'm like, let's look at Lori Raider Day and how she writes, or some of these other suspense authors. So yeah, and here's, the older I get, the less I'm capable of reading at night. Like I used to read at night all the time. And now I'm
Yeah.
just sort of like, I'm tired. My eyes are tired. Like, and so I tend now, I get up about between 6 and 6:30, and I feed the dogs and I go out and I feed the horses. And then I read
Yeah.
until like 8, and then I start working.
Writing.
So I've actually moved my reading time into when I my brain can sort of take it in a little bit better.
That's really smart. I wished I could do mornings, but I have small kids. So evenings when
Yeah.
they're in bed is the
Yeah,
easiest
yeah,
time for
yeah,
me, but
yeah.
mornings would be so much nicer when you just wake up,
It's
have a
really
cup of tea.
lovely. It's really lovely.
Very jealous. Very jealous. So you being an avid reader, I have to know, do you dog ear your pages and annotate, or are you civilized and use a bookmark?
I have a variety of ways that I do this, and some of them will horrify you, just
I'm
horrify
ready.
you. So first off, I often read in an e-reader, and part of that is I can make the font bigger. Because even with reading glasses, I just small font has gotten hard to read. So I do read on an e-reader. I still love physical book. I sometimes use a piece of paper, like a bookmark, like a civilized human being. I sometimes, don't hate me for this, I leave them open flat. I know that breaks the binding, but I do it. I do it. I don't dog ear. I don't dog ear, but I sometimes, and sometimes I just close the book and know I can find where I was. So yeah,
Now that is a skill. My daughters have
it's,
habit of pulling my bookmarks out, and then I'm like, it could take me ages. Sometimes I have to go back because I
I
just
have an uncanny ability. I just was born with it. I have an uncanny ability to get right back to where I was.
I'm so jealous. I'm with you on the e-reader thing because that's where I actually read your book.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
it's so much easier to read. You're right. I could adjust the lighting. I could do a dark background. So I'm with you there. I carry my e-reader
Yeah,
everywhere I
yeah,
go because you never know.
yeah,
You're gonna
yep,
be stuck in traffic
yep,
or yeah, I'm
yep.
with you. So I thought to kind of wrap this up, we do a little this or that literary edition so you can pick which one you like. So I already know that it's e-readers over hardcovers, so I'll skip that one.
Well, with one exception, I love having hardcovers of like my friends' books that are signed. Like those mean a lot to me. So I do
Signed.
love it.
Oh
Yeah.
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 That's
Yeah.
something I love too. I have just one section on my shelves just for signed
Yeah.
edition. Nothing else
Yeah.
is allowed anywhere near it. So I'm with you
Yep.
there.
Yep. Yep.
I'm with you. So, do you prefer pen and paper or a laptop for your writing?
I write on the computer until I feel like I have a finished draft. Then I print that out and I read it on the page and make notes on the page. Sometimes even writing new scenes longhand on the back. And then I enter all that into the computer and I do it all over again. So
Oh,
I do
you
both.
use both. I like that. That's clever. Are you a morning writer or more of a night owl?
Morning. Used to be at night, but nope, morning. Kind of like my reading habits. Like everything's in the morning at night. I'm like, nope, I'm done.
Got it. Yeah. I feel that with my soul. So, you more research or inspiration?
I would say I'm 60-40 inspiration over research. And it depends a little bit. It depends a little bit on what I'm writing. So for example, in my police procedurals, I've gotten so much better. I don't have to do quite as much. I have a cop I run everything past. And so I always do that with him. But I've got more in my head than I used to. With other stuff, especially if I'm creating a character who, for example, their work is something really different for me, then the research is going to go way back up. So maybe 75, 25, 75. Yeah, 25.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So, mountains or beaches?
I think a beach at the foot of a mountain is the greatest thing in the world.
That's
Greatest thing in the world. I don't Right? I don't know if you've ever been on the Nepali coastline, which is in the Hawaiian Islands, and it
no,
is mountains that just drop in phenomenal. So I'm gonna go with a
really.
beach at the foot of a mountain. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
well,
I
now I
get to
need
have
to
my cake and eat
visit.
it too.
Now I need to visit there because I live in the Rocky Mountains, and people who say mountains should come live here for 6 months, you change your mind. So it's just are you more a coffee or a tea person?
Definitely more coffee, but I have started drinking a cup of green tea a day because of the antioxidants. So, and I love a good like English breakfast or Earl Grey, but I
Love it.
definitely drink more coffee. Yeah. Yep.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice. Are you more summer or winter?
I'm actually fall. So I'm gonna go winter. I'm gonna go winter with your dichotomy, but I fall is actually my all-time favorite. So I'm really happy right now that we're in
In
fall.
that season? We don't really get fall here. It goes from hot to snow. And I'm not even joking. It was
Yeah.
25 degrees last week, and then
Yeah.
we have snow now.
Yeah.
That's it. That's just how Calgary rolls.
So
Yeah.
cold. So
We
cold.
don't get fall at all. It's just, it's not even a season here. So do you prefer a quiet place, quiet study place, or a busy cafe?
Um, 90% of the time I like quiet. And then I'll have moments where I'll think I need to be out in the world. Like I want to hear some dialogue. I want to watch body language. I want to be embedded in a community that I don't have to actually talk to. I
Yeah.
like, and so then I'll go to a coffee shop and work a little bit and then go retire back home to quiet.
Nice. Yeah, I like people watching too. That must give you some real you must get inspiration from being out and about too
Yeah.
for your books.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. So do you prefer to travel or stay home?
Stay home.
Yeah.
I've got 2 equines, 2 dogs, 3 cats. I live on a 12 acres. This
Nice.
is my happy place.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah,
say, why wouldn't
I love meal,
why would you
right? I'm like, I have a giant mule. I have a giant mule outside my window. Why would I go anywhere
you wouldn't need to. I wouldn't need to. Yeah, that's heaven.
else?
Wow, you're living the life I
It
need
is.
right now. Are you more cats or dogs?
Don't tell my cats, but yeah, I'm a dog. I'm dog girl. But don't tell my
I love
cats that.
dogs too. I
I love them. I love them. But yeah, dogs have my heart. Yeah.
It's lovely. I love that. Me too. My husband's more cats, but I like big dogs, so it doesn't really mix
Yeah.
here. But I won. I got my way. Are you more character driven or plot driven?
So I believe that plots are characters in action. I think you can't separate them.
Yeah.
Having said that, I probably could make things more active as a writer than I sometimes do. I probably lean more into the character stuff, but I truly believe, as you mentioned, like plots are characters in action, so you can't have one without the other.
Yeah. You're not wrong. You are really not wrong. So do you prefer happy endings or bittersweet conclusions?
Depends on the mood I'm in.
Yeah.
There are some authors I really like that I can't read if I'm a little bit down. And then there are times where I'm like, "Oh, I want a good gut-wrenching story." It
I mean,
truly has to do with my
yeah,
mental state.
you're a mood
Yep.
reader. I
Yep.
love
Oh,
that.
yeah. Yep.
I am
Yep.
a complete mood reader too. If I'm not in the mood for it, it's not happening. I don't care how much you force it on me. It's not happening.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So do you prefer genre fiction or literary fiction?
I might argue that literary fiction is a genre, right? So it's also genre fiction.
Yeah.
I think that's a little bit of a I think that is such a holdover from this sort of idea that literary fiction is somehow greater than. And I agree that because I love both. I love good literary fiction and I do recognize that there's a difference between do you love the language versus are you caught up with character and plot
Yeah.
and all that. I would argue or my position is that they're they're not as dissimilar. Speaking of cats, hi, Juniper. Did not expect to see her. I think that they're not as dissimilar as we might think. So you have people like Ivan Doig, who's one of my all-time favorite literary authors, and he was a local, lived in Edmonds, Washington for a long, long time, had grown up in Montana. And you look at Ivan Doig and you go, wow. And I said this to him. I said, Ivan, you write like Shakespeare because he uses words in ways that are unexpected and he really creates
Right.
language. And that's such a gift and a skill. And he does have a plot and he's got characters and all that other stuff. And I read him when I want to really dig into wonderful, beautiful language.
Yeah.
But there's you have to have an incredible facility with language to pull off a thriller.
Right.
It's
Yes, you do.
just a different kind of language. It's
Exactly.
how do you write concisely and clearly, but have a line that, like you did, you pull a line out of genre fiction and go, this line resonated with me. Well,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
a facility with language.
Yeah.
So my very long answer to your very short question is I think there's such tremendous value in both. And I love a literary mystery and I love, a literary historical novel and I love just a straight up literary, but sometimes you just want to be sucked in and immersed into a story that goes so fast you forget you're reading. And
Yeah.
that's what genre fiction can do for us.
Yes, for sure.
So it's I'm going to go back to my earlier cop out, which is it depends on what I'm in the mood to read.
Yeah. That was actually beautifully put. I guess I'd never really thought about it like that, but that was actually beautifully put. What's worse, reader's block or writer's block?
I think there's no such thing as writer's block. I
Really?
think that's a fallacy. I
Tell me more.
th I think people are gonna be like, What do you mean?" I think that writer's block is actually an author a writer who didn't do their homework.
Oh,
If you know your characters, if you know your story, you may like, "Oh, God, this chapter was hard," and it may be a lot of work, but you're not blocked because you know where you're going. You know who they are, you know what they're gonna do next.
right.
And so when a writer says, "Well, I've hit writer's block," I go, "No, you just don't know your story. So stop writing and go sit with it. Ask yourself, what would they do next? Ask yourself, how does the story end? Free write, how does the story end? If you know where it ends, you're not always going to get it right. You may have chapters you're going to cut later and all that, but you're not blocked. So I think writer's block doesn't exist. Now, having said that, the muses will probably come down and block me, but I truly believe that it is not a block. It's that you don't know your character, you don't know your stories, and some of that has to happen without sitting at your
Wow.
computer.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah. Because it's funny because I say sometimes I get writer's block writing reviews, when really it's just I don't know how to articulate what I want to say. I know what I want to say, it's just I can't get it out. So yeah, I guess
Yes.
you're not wrong.
Yes.
I actually agree with that.
And I will bet you that if you walk away and you go do something, like take a walk and just let it gel, you'll have a moment where you'll go, I know how to approach this. And then you
Yeah.
come back and it's there.
Yeah. Well, that happens to me. I had a bunch of reviews I had to write and I couldn't. Like it wasn't coming and I left it for a few days and then I
Yeah.
banged out 10 of them.
And then you were absolutely, absolutely. A friend of mine and I years ago, we coined a term called honor the mole, MULL, honor the mole. In that, in a creative process like writers or reviewers, where you're using language and you're interpreting story, that sometimes you have to step away and mull. You just
Yeah.
have to think about it and you just
Yeah.
have to let it. And that's why writer's block, I think, isn't real. I think it's just
Yeah.
they haven't honored the mole. They got to honor the mole.
Yeah. No, you're right. I completely agree with that. I'm gonna remember that. And the last one for this is, do you prefer originality or what your readers are expecting from your work?
I think, and I could be wrong. We'll have to take a poll with my readers. I think my readers expect originality from me because I do have two different series and I do write in different genre and I do have like you know bring in thriller-esque aspects to a police procedural or comedy into a murder. And so I think that is what my readers expect from me.
Yeah.
I hope so, because this book is a departure, right? So I'm
Yeah.
hoping that they're excited that it's something different. But I tend to think differently than other people.
Yeah.
As I think I think you could probably tell with how I answered your this or that questions, right? Like I do.
Not what I was expecting
It's
at all. I've had
I
some
know.
moments.
It gets me into trouble sometimes because I'm just like, well,
Oh,
that's
I
not how I
don't
think. And
believe
people are like,
that.
how can you not? And I'm like, that's how
That's how I
so
feel
I yeah.
about it. Can't retract opinion. Sorry. So you said that you're working on stuff right now. What is your current working process about? And when can your fans expect you to release it?
So I've got two kind of projects, and one is the next Sheriff Bet Rivers book, and that will come out August of 2026. I think it's August. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's what we're looking at. Another book with Severn House. So they have that series. And so that's what I've got with my editor right now. And so that's a done deal. And then my the work in progress, which is suspense, is a piece that I started working on. It's the book that I'll have a book I'm under contract for and I'll finish that and I'll go to this one and then, oh, I've got a book under contract and then, and so I keep coming back to this one and I really like it. It doesn't have a home yet. My agent hasn't read it. I mean,
Right.
it's a long way from being done, but I feel like I am much stronger at writing suspense. And so I'm excited about where that one's going to go. So hopefully that'll find a home.
Sure it will. If it's anything as amazing as the one I just finished reading, you are gonna have a smash hit on your hand. I can guarantee it.
Wonderful.
So, where can readers find you on social media and where can they currently buy your work?
So my books are available anywhere. You can buy them online at, Barnes and Noble and Amazon and IndieBound and, all of those places. Stores don't always carry them, but they can always get them. So you can always call, order the book, and they'll bring it. And then, if you're in Spokane, Washington, the local bookstores here carry me too. So you can come in person. And then you can find me. My website is ElenaTaylorAuthor.com, all one word, ElenaTaylorAuthor.com. And I'm on Instagram at Elena_Taylor AUT, and Facebook, Elena Taylor Author. And I'm also on as Elena Hartwell Taylor. The personal one has a lot more animal pictures.
I'm not there with it.
The author one is a lot more like, here's my newsletter, and I've got a book signing, and I
Nice.
review of this and that and other books and stuff like that. So you can follow both depending on whether you want to see horse and dogs and cats. And
Maybe they want to see both. I know I would.
I'm happy to have people do both.
Awesome.
They're
Is there
not the same.
anything? No, but you know what? That's okay. Sometimes I'm in the mood for animals. I'll go looking for cat videos, and I'm not a cat person. I don't like cat videos. You never know. Is there anything else you want the listeners to know about you or your work before we sign off?
No, your questions were so great and so wide and interesting, and I feel like we sort of captured everything. So I just want to, shout out to everybody who reads my work. I'm grateful to all of you.
Excellent. I'm going to say one thing. I absolutely love the cover. Like, the cover is really
Isn't
haunting.
it amazing? I love. We that went through a lot of rounds, and my publishers were awesome. They just did an amazing
Excellent.
job on that cover. We're
Yeah,
we're
because
really thrilled with it. Yeah.
covers like that sets the stage right there. That sets the
Yeah.
stage.
Yeah.
No, I'm
Yeah.
really hoping that some of my listeners will go and find you. I know a lot of people follow me that really do enjoy this kind of brand of book, so I am highly recommending it. I just almost finished my review, so I'll probably have that posted today, but I gave you 4.5 stars. I thought it was excellent.
Thank you.
Excellent. And I'm
Thank you.
really hard on these kinds of books because this is my bread and butter. This is what I grew up reading. So I'm always a little tough on it, and you nailed it for me.
Thank
Absolutely
you. Thank you.
nailed it for me. So I'm urging my listeners to go and grab a copy of your book, give it a review, get you some noise online. I would be absolutely blown away because honestly, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I think you did an amazing job.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I hope you get some follows too. Guys, I hope you really enjoyed this episode. I have really enjoyed getting to know Elena. She is a phenomenal author. Her book is amazing. I highly recommend it. You can follow me on YouTube at L'Adulteress. You can find my Facebook page at L'Adulteress Whore. You can find me on Instagram at L'Adulteress Whore and on TikTok at L'Adulteress. Please go find this book, go give it a read, and go give it a review. Thank you so much for coming on, Elena. And I really hope that you'll think of me when your next book is released so I can have a read.
Boy, will I. I would love to come back. Would love to come back.
Excellent. We'll set that up. Okay, readers, we hope you have a wonderful reading week. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.